Oak Ridge Grove was supposed to be peaceful. That was the whole point of moving there. I'd spent most of my working life in the city. Noise, traffic, inconsiderate neighbors, HOA drama you could practically hear through the walls. So when I finally saved up enough to buy a place with land, I went looking for space and quiet. I found it. A modest, ranch-style house on a corner lot with enough room for a detached garage and, what really sealed the deal, a 1,000-square-foot steel frame workshop behind it. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid. Cement foundation. 2 roll-up doors. Wired for 220 volts. I spent the first 3 months after moving in just setting it up. Cutting tables, tool walls, plasma cutter, arc welder, clamps, racks, vent system, and a dedicated corner for custom fabrication. I'm a metalworker by trade. I specialize in custom gates, security grills, vintage motorcycle frames, stuff that needs patience, precision, and space. My workshop was my dream. I'd finally carved out a little piece of the world that didn't belong to a boss, a landlord, or some faceless property manager. For a while, everything was perfect. Then came Karen. She moved into the tan stucco house across the street almost a year after I did. Single woman, mid-50s, always in a hurry, always on her Bluetooth headset. The moving truck hadn't even pulled away when I saw her measuring her lawn with a tape measure. Within 2 months, she was elected president of the HOA in a barely contested vote after the last guy retired. And the clipboard came out. You could always tell where Karen had been by the sticky notes she left. Bright yellow messages taped to trash bins, porch lights, and front doors. Your shutters need repainting. Yard is overgrown beyond HOA regulation. Garbage cans must be removed from curb by 10 a.m. At first, she ignored me. My place was tidy, my lawn edged, my paint fresh. But the workshop. That must have stuck in her throat. I'd hear her walking her little yappy dog past my house every morning, glancing over at the open roll-up doors like she was inspecting a crime scene. Then came the emails. Please store your tools where they are not visible from the street. Your workshop creates excessive industrial appearance not in line with community guidelines. Some residents have expressed concern that your garage is being used for commercial activity. I wrote back politely every time. Explained that I was well within zoning regulations. I wasn't operating a storefront. I didn't have customer foot traffic. I paid my taxes, kept the noise down, and worked mostly during daylight hours. But Karen wasn't interested in facts. She wanted conformity. She wanted control. Still, I played nice. I put up a curtain to shield the interior of the garage from view. I started parking my trailer in the back instead of the front. I even rerouted some of my deliveries to a friend's shop just to keep things low-key. It wasn't enough. One Tuesday morning, I came out to start my day, and found Karen's silver Land Rover parked directly in front of my garage. Not her driveway. Not the curb in front of her house. My shop entrance. The rear bumper sat square across the seam between my 2 roll-up doors. I stood there for a full minute, just blinking at it. At first, I thought maybe her driveway was blocked. Or maybe someone else parked there and she had to make a quick run. But there was no note. No explanation. I walked across the street and knocked on her door. No answer. I left a sticky note on her windshield. Please don't block my garage. I use this daily. Thank you. I figured it was a one-off. But the next day. Same thing. The day after that. Again. Now I was getting angry. On Thursday, I set an alarm and waited outside just to catch her. At 6:45 a.m., she strolled out of her house in a designer sweatsuit, leash in one hand, travel mug in the other, like she didn't have a care in the world. Her dog, some kind of over-fluffed Pomeranian, yapped at me like I'd insulted his mother. "Karen," I said as calmly as I could, "you're blocking my shop again. I've got work to do today." She paused, pulled her sunglasses down, looked at me like I was a speck on her windshield. "Oh, that," she said. "You really should consider getting a permit for all that welding." This is a residential neighborhood. It's my property, I said. I'm not violating any code. She shrugged. Well, we're reviewing that. But in the meantime, you might consider taking a few days off. This is a peaceful community. And just like that, she climbed into her SUV and backed out, only to return 2 minutes later and park in the exact same spot. No pretense. No excuse. Just power. I tried going through the HOA. Brought it up at the next board meeting. I even printed photos, her car, timestamps, blocked deliveries. The vice president looked uncomfortable. One neighbor nodded. Karen simply crossed her arms and said, "The curb is public property. He doesn't own the street." The board voted 3-2 in her favor. I filed a complaint with the city. The inspector came out, walked around, measured noise levels, nodded, and left. The follow-up report said I was compliant. Didn't matter. Karen kept parking there. At first it was just an inconvenience. Then it was a loss of income. I had a large steel gate order that couldn't be loaded into the trailer. Client cancelled. I lost $1,200 on the job and weeks of work. I tried parking cones. She moved them. I tried polite reminders. She ignored them. So I stopped being polite. I started planning. I'm not someone who believes in petty revenge. I believe in poetic justice. And I had something Karen didn't. Tools. Skill. Steel. And patience. When Friday morning came and her SUV was once again blocking my roll-up doors, I knew what I had to do. I documented everything. Took photos. Shot a short video. Emailed myself the timestamps. Made sure that if anyone ever accused me of anything illegal, the record would show I didn't touch her vehicle. What I did touch was my own workshop. And that weekend, I welded together a trap so beautiful, so satisfying, that it still makes me smile to this day. So I stopped talking and started thinking. Not about yelling, not about calling the HO, but about building something she couldn't argue with. Something stronger than words. I had a plan. And it started with steel. There's a strange kind of power that comes from knowing you're in the right, and still choosing to bide your time. I spent that Friday evening sketching out my plan at the back of my workshop. My hands were steady, but my mind was on fire. I wasn't just thinking about Karen's SUV. I was thinking about every morning I'd lost to her arrogance. Every email she'd ignored. Every time she used the HOA rules like a sword while hiding behind the spirit of the community. This wasn't just about welding anymore. It was about restoring balance. Now, let me be clear. I didn't touch her car. I didn't key it. I didn't slash her tires. I didn't so much as breathe on her precious Land Rover. That's criminal, and it's not my style. But I did do something to the doors of my own workshop. Something clever. Something satisfying. On Saturday morning, I rolled up the metal shop doors early, before Karen could make her usual passive-aggressive parking maneuver. I propped them open, left the interior lights off, and pulled my welding cart just inside. Then, I got to work. First, I welded 2 steel brackets to the inside of each roll-up door, one at the base, one at waist height. Each bracket had a thick horizontal slot. Then I cut 2 thick lengths of square steel bar, think medieval drawbridge latches, but heavier, and slid them through the brackets. Once the bars were in place, I welded them into the walls of the garage frame. Each door was now locked from the inside with solid steel. Completely inaccessible from the outside. And then came the piece de resistance. I tack welded the center seam where the 2 garage doors met. Just a few tiny beads, barely visible unless you knew what to look for, but strong enough to prevent anyone from lifting or rolling the doors. To the outside world, my workshop looked perfectly normal. But to anyone trying to open those doors, it was like trying to unbend iron with your fingernails. I stepped back, admired my work, and smiled. It was elegant, undeniably mine, and totally within my rights. I was reinforcing the doors of my own shop. What could Karen say? That I made it too secure. That afternoon, I packed a small duffel bag, loaded up my truck, and drove 2 hours up the coast to a friend's cabin in the woods. No cell signal. No email. Just fishing, beer, and silence. I left a few lights on at home, locked the front door, and let nature and Karen take their course. Now, here's where it gets fun. I returned home Tuesday morning. As I turned onto our street, I saw it immediately. Karen's SUV was still parked in front of my garage. But this time, something was off. Her posture. Her urgency. The way she was pacing near the vehicle and talking loudly on her phone. I parked in my driveway and walked up calmly, pretending like I hadn't been gone. "Morning," I said, sipping from the coffee I'd picked up on the way in. She snapped her head toward me. Her sunglasses were off, and for once, she looked genuinely flustered. "What did you do to your doors?" she demanded. I raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me. I was trying to move my car on Saturday and She stopped, realizing what she'd just admitted. I let the silence sit. "You were trying to, what?" I asked, voice level. "I just needed to back up a little to turn around, and I accidentally parked a bit too close," she huffed. "But now the doors won't open." I heard metal grinding. "What did you do?" I smiled. "Upgraded the security." The HOA was so concerned about what was visible inside. Figured I'd reinforce the whole thing. "You welded them shut." "Nope. Reinforced. My property. My tools. Perfectly within code." She looked like she wanted to argue, but couldn't find her footing. I could see the wheels turning behind her narrowed eyes. She'd planned to block me again. Probably wanted to create another scene, another complaint to the board. But instead of me blowing up, I had left her trapped by her own pettiness. And it got better. Later that day, I got a call from Paul, one of my neighbors who had never cared much for HOA politics. He'd seen Karen trying to reverse out on Sunday and scrape the front of her SUV against the metal latch I'd welded into the door seam. Small dent. Light scratch. She was losing her mind, he chuckled. Tried to file a vandalism report. But you weren't even home. Exactly. Over the next few days, Karen tried everything short of admitting fault. She posted photos of my intimidating garage structure on the neighborhood forum. Claimed it was a safety hazard. She even called a locksmith, who stood there, hands on hips, told her the doors weren't locked, just immovable, and left. The HOA meeting that week was glorious. She brought it up as the first order of business, non-conforming building modification. I stood up and explained calmly. I reinforced my own doors to comply with the HOA's ongoing concerns about what was visible inside. There are no code violations. No lights on. No noise. No visible tools. No access. You said it should look more like a shed. Now it does. One of the board members chuckled. Even the vice president cracked a smile. Karen tried to shift gears, but I couldn't move my vehicle. Oh. Why was it parked there in the first place? She paused. Dead silence. That moment, right there, was when the tide turned. Neighbors were watching. People had seen her park there day after day, despite my notes, despite my emails. She'd overplayed her hand. 2 weeks later, a letter went out from the HOA board. No resident shall block garage access of another home. Parking in front of active workshop doors was now considered a finable offense. I laminated a copy and pinned it inside my shop. But I wasn't done yet. Karen's grip on the neighborhood was slipping. And I was about to give her a final push. You see, I'd been paying close attention to the foreclosure notices posted in the county registry. Karen had lived in that house a long time. Probably assumed her position on the board gave her a sense of permanence. But arrogance blinds people. And I had noticed something in the public records. Something she couldn't hide forever. I laminated a copy and pinned it inside my shop. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because while Karen was busy spinning in circles, I was quietly preparing the move that would end her reign for good. Some people learn from embarrassment. Others double down until karma finally knocks on the door. Karen. She was the latter. She had gotten her ego bruised at that HOA meeting, and now she was on a slow, silent warpath, one I knew would eventually eat her from the inside out. But I wasn't concerned anymore. I had already shifted my focus to the next phase of my plan. See, after the incident with the welded garage doors, I started paying closer attention to Karen's routines, not just her morning power walks and late-night wine deliveries, but her paperwork. I'd seen the foreclosure notices in the public registry for properties in our zip code, just part of a habit I picked up during a renovation project the year before. But when I saw her address pop up on one of those filings, well, let's just say my curiosity became laser-focused. Her house wasn't officially in foreclosure yet, but it was close. Pre-foreclosure status, defaulted mortgage notice filed by the county. Which meant, unless she pulled a financial miracle out of her handbag, her house would go up for auction. Now, I didn't celebrate this news. I'm not cruel. But the poetic irony? That was hard to ignore. This woman, who treated her HOA position like a throne and tried to make my life miserable just for working with my hands, might soon lose the very house she lorded over everyone from. And when the notice became official, auction set for 60 days out, I made my move. I got a lawyer. Quietly. Carefully. I didn't want a whisper of this getting back to Karen. My attorney helped me set up a small LLC using a nondescript name. Not tied to me. Not tied to the workshop. Just a quiet little shell company with one mission: buy that house. The day of the auction, I showed up in a plain shirt, sunglasses, and a hat. I sat 3 rows back, didn't speak, didn't fidget. When her address came up, only one other bidder tossed in a lowball offer. The place wasn't in great shape. It had a cracked foundation, aging AC, and the kind of overly specific upgrades only a Karen could love. Fake stone backsplash, gold bathroom fixtures, floral wallpaper. Most investors weren't interested. But I was. I won the bid. I bought Karen's house. Legally. Fairly. Cleanly. It felt surreal. Like some weird HOA revenge movie come to life. But the best part. The eviction. I didn't show up on her porch with a smug smile or a moving truck. That's not my style. I had my lawyer send her the formal 30-day notice to vacate. No explanation. No warning. Just a cold envelope in her mailbox with a line that read, "This property has been purchased at public auction. You have 30 days to vacate." According to Paul, my neighbor and unofficial source of all gossip, Karen completely lost it when she got the letter. She paced the sidewalk in slippers for an hour. Called every HOA board member, but none of them could help. This wasn't about bylaws or warnings. This was real estate law. Cold. Hard. Final. She tried calling the auction office. They confirmed the sale. She tried calling the county. They confirmed the ownership transfer. She even tried reaching out to the mysterious LLC. That email came to me. She had no idea who she was writing to. She kept it formal, passive-aggressive, in the most Karen way possible. To whom it may concern, I believe there has been a mistake involving the recent transaction on my property. I responded with 2 sentences. There is no mistake. Please vacate by the deadline to avoid further legal action. She never replied. The next few weeks were pure, quiet bliss. I'd walk past her house each morning on my way to the mailbox, sip my coffee, and pretend not to notice the way she peeked out from behind her blinds. She never confronted me. I think deep down she knew. She couldn't admit it, not to me, not to the neighborhood, but she knew. And when moving day came, she didn't say goodbye. A budget moving van showed up on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. She loaded her gold-rimmed mirror, her aggressively beige throw pillows, and her collection of wine-themed wall art. Then she drove away, alone. No wave. No eye contact. No closure. I gave it a week before stepping inside. The house was strangely lifeless. Everything had Karen's fingerprints but none of her presence. It smelled like lilac air freshener and tension. I spent a few days deciding what to do with it. I didn't want to flip it. I didn't need to rent it. What I needed was peace. So I tore down the ugly vinyl shutters, painted the exterior a deep, calm gray, and turned the interior into a private studio gallery, a space for showcasing my metalwork. It wasn't open to the public. No sales. Just a private, clean, peaceful room where I could weld, sculpt, and create without the drama. And it came with one beautiful perk. Karen's old driveway was now mine. The same spot she used to block me from working. I parked my trailer there every morning, walked across the street to my own shop, and got to work with a smile. Neighbors started coming by. Curious. Congratulatory. Even some who used to back Karen admitted they were relieved she was gone. The HOA became a little more relaxed. Less militant. The new president, a retired contractor named Joe, personally stopped by to tell me he appreciated how I handled everything. You played the long game, he said. Didn't stoop. Just waited. I nodded. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting the truth catch up. But the real win was silence. No more notes. No more complaints. No more Land Rover blocking my shop. Just the quiet hum of my machines, the crackle of the welder, and the peace of knowing I hadn't just won the war. I'd outlived the storm. Karen never came back. Word is, she moved in with her sister 3 towns over. Still involved in her new HOA. Still pushing rules. Still looking for someone to control. But not me. Not here. Because here. This street belongs to the people who build, not the ones who bully.